morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the people who are joined in. Welcome to first event of Latin America of GWFM chapter. This gives us a great pleasure and pride to welcome you to be part of the Latin America chapter event. We are all there. I see that so excitement. Trust me, we have close to 400 registration for this event, which is one of the highest ever at registrations that we have received so far for the events that we did earlier, except the annual events. Great things that like today the event is going to be taking a new paradigm shift of sharing some thoughts where we have great WFM minds out here, great thought leaders and experts, the WFM tech and WFM thought leadership, and the new trends in 2020. Right, and a lot of new areas like how WFM is really looking at it as far as 2020 trends are concerned. So we have fabulous speakers lined up today. So welcome to Latin America chapter event. Welcome Sebastian, Tatiana, Sean, John, Paul, Troy, Juan. It's really great pleasure having all of you together today. I'm sure that today is going to be the day that we're going to share huge knowledge, and also we're going to learn from each other. So our agenda looks like this today. We're going to have 2 hours of power practice session with 3 keynote speeches and then wonderful roundtable on very interesting topic. Well, me and Sebastian were talking about this since last 1 year. In fact, Sebastian was supposed to join in Manila event the last year, February, and later which we have been talking each other that yes, we should do something. Finally, we have come to the time that yes, we're going to do this event, and thanks Sebastian for all the effort that has taken creating the chapter in Latin America, and is going to lead Latin America chapter. And thanks for all your support and the encouragement to me and to the chapter, the rest of the speakers and audience. Before we could start, let me give you little insights about it. My name is Dr.Shiva. I'm the founder and CEO of the GWFM. We started this forum 5 years back. Just in a small business school, we started with 30-40 people. We didn't know that the group is going to grow very big, but we are growing rapidly worldwide. And we're the first one to bring the International WFM Professionals Day to the community. There's a day for Mother's Day, Father's Day, Engineers Day, Doctor's Day. We didn't have a day for WFM Professionals. We thought that yes, we would have one day for WFM Professionals Day on 27th of June. You may ask that why on 27th of June? 27th of June is when we started. We thought that let's dedicate this for the WFM professionals. We want to reach out to every WFM professionals on this planet. We want to touch their heart and soul, and we want to create knowledge sharing and professional networking platform. We are surrounded with great advisors and well-wishers and great thought leaders in WFM area, and we have been evolving, and we continue to evolve. This event, we'll come back to a little later. So what we have been doing since last 2 to 3 years, we've been known as awarding body as far as product is concerned, WFM products, and also best practices. But previously we had Exaware, KPMG, IBM getting the winning prize for the best tools and best practices. Last year, we had Sutherland, Concentrates, Fusion, and of course NICE got best practices in WFM, best innovation in WFM, and the WFM tools are concerned. This year, we're going to have it again in the month of June, 26th and 27th. As I was mentioning that 27th is a day that we have dedicated, and we're the first one to have the WFM education in association with the university affiliation, and we're the first one to get this hackathon. Hackathon is going to come. I'm going to share some insight about it a little later. And first one to curate this hackathon in the global market. Hackathons have been happening for the technical side of it, but never had any hackathons for the WFM. Hackathon is all about, get your ideas work. So we, GWFM, we have the chapters in North America, APAC, Australia, New Zealand, EMEA, of course, Latin America, first time that we're launching it. We are looking forward to seeing your support. What GWFM does, we do interviews with the leaders, best practices sharing, CXOs conversation, white papers, trends, magazines, and also we publish market reports, and we offer the courses, WFM courses, and then executive program, PG program, and also very importantly, fellowship and allied fellowship. in the WFM area, and also we do consulting, and we've been mentoring and coaching WFM folks and also the organizations. So with this, let me not talk much about GWFM. I encourage all the audience to join in on our social media. This page is going to be available to you, and you could take a screenshot of this and join in. Looking forward to networking with each one of you. So with this, I invite the first keynote speaker, Sebastian. Sebastian comes with more than 2 decades of experience, Chief Workforce Officer for Teleperformance in Middle America's region. Sebastian is a thought leader and comes with a lot of experience, and managing biggest team is managing 800 WFM team members in the region, and he's been very busy always, but he's been very empathetic that yes, we want to do something for the community. He really stands tall as far as helping WFM professionals is concerned, and he has got a lot of thoughts and latest trends that he wants to share. With this, I met Sebastian. Sebastian is the one who's going to lead the Latin America chapter. Sebastian, can we have you?
Thank you, Shiva. Okay, well, first, thank you very much for your introduction, Shiva. I'm honored actually to be here with these leaders sharing our vision for workforce management. And I want to start my conversation with 2 quotes that have changed the way I see business and therefore my view of WFM and my strategy and priorities for not only this year, but also the next 2 years. So the first one is a quote from Satya Nadella, which is the Microsoft CEO. And he says that every company is now a software company. And I couldn't agree more with him because, for example, if your organization provides services, the software probably coordinates the entire workflow, supports customer service, builds loyalty, manages the treasury, or just aggregates indicators for management decisions, right? If your business is industrial, then the software probably controls acquisition, production, stock management, marketing, sales, distribution. And when more than 90 or 95% of your organization's operations can be supported by software, then it's undeniable that your business is a software business. So your organization is a software business, even if your activities are not yet managed by software, right? So as it is ultimately a software that determines the quality, speed, and scale of your activity. It is the competitiveness of your company that is in question, right? This is the first quote. And with all this software interacting, between each other, with our customers, with our employees, there is a lot of data that is being created, right? And it's exponentially growing. So that takes me to the next quote, and it's from John Lathley's book, Data Governance. And it's, make no mistake, a 21st century organization needs to manage data as an asset. This is the essence of what it means to be data-driven, right? So you need first to have, or your company needs to be a software company, and your company needs to be data-driven, right? Those 2 capabilities are the ones that you need to grow. And with that question in my mind, right, how can I grow and mature these capabilities in my company, is that I approach my vision for the next years. So in my particular case, we have invested a lot of, or huge in technology on the forecasting and the scheduling processes. We have our own proprietary tools that automates most of the process. But for real time, I do have a little bit more than 50% of the WFM team is dedicated to real-time management activities, right? So for me, the opportunity on having more resources to grow those 2 capabilities comes from the automation and efficiencies that I can do in real time. And there is the question that actually we were discussing, I remember a couple of months back with some of the leaders, and is real-time management defunct, right? So real-time management has always been one of the core functions for WFM, right? Because it allows you to adapt to any deviation between your forecast assumptions and what is actually happening. And by adaptation, I mean adding or removing hours as needed. So you have your list of triggers that will make you request more or less hours. We all know these triggers. So for example, if AHT is above forecast or above target, it will trigger a need for more hours, while absenteeism below forecast or below target will translate in less hours needed, right? We all know that. But how can you know, or how do you know how much more or less hours do you require? Let me illustrate my point. If you have a spike on AHT in a specific interval, how do you know how long is that going to take, right? So you immediately know that you need more hours, but for how long? And that's crucial because you need to articulate that with your agents and the schedules of your agent, right? It's not as easy as it sounds. So how can I know the length of those events affecting my prediction? How can I be sure, and how can I forecast or reforecast this in real time to adapt and adjust as needed? This is the biggest question for me. But the good news also is that with the proliferation of artificial intelligence and machine learning, we're now able to answer that question, right? So think of an algorithm that every 30 minutes is recalculating your required hours for the upcoming intervals based on your current conditions, right? So AHT, absenteeism, volume, all those components of your forecast, you will individually analyze them and then combine them all to determine if you are understaffed for the next intervals. And automatically sends the result of that equation to your scheduling system as a request to add or remove hours for the next intervals. So your scheduling system will automatically take two different actions, depending on the scenario. The first, if you need more hours, it will send a request for overtime to agents trained and available. And so all agents matching specific conditions on training, performance, max hours, workload, etc., will receive a notification on their phones or desktops and accept the extra time if they're willing to. And if extra time is not 100% covered by agents, it will send notification to staff, supervisors, QA, trainers to cover that. And the second scenario, the opposite, if you need or if you will need less hours, it will send an offer for voluntary time off to all online agents who will receive the notification the same way and will accept if they want. If not, and you still have budget, if you still have space, then it will send a notification to supervisors, QAs, etc., so they can plan offline activities and provide coaching or whatever the operation is needing. And finally, the scheduling system automatically updates these changes, uploads the hours, and the next interval, the whole process starts over again. So this is a process, or some things need to converge, so you have flow and you have a smooth process. First, you need a large workforce, because it won't work if it's just a couple of agents. You need to have a large workforce, and you need to have it remotely, most likely, because of the flexibility that you can have on connecting 2 hours from now without having to get a transport to a site or whatever it is, right? So with the remote workforce, if you have the setup, it will do. This is how we move from real-time management to real-time forecasting and adjusting, right? For me, this is how we will operate very soon, and by very soon I mean probably by the end of the year or starting first half 2022. And transforming the real-time management to real-time forecasting and adjusting. So that, will leave us with available resources to build the two capabilities that I shared in the first slide: software development capabilities and data. How or in what are you going to train those resources? Well, my bet is in these four categories. So first is programming languages: SQL, Python, R. Anything that is going to allow you to handle huge volumes of information or data. Of course, agile and lean methodologies, call it Six Sigma, Scrum, design thinking, all those methodologies that will set the culture in the organization to be agile, to eliminate waste in processes, and that will give you the flexibility that you need to move faster. And of course, and very important, data literacy and data engineering. You need to train your people in how to govern your data, how to manage your data. Data governance and data management are, for me, key functions that has been rising for the last couple of years and will continue to be needed, very needed. And we, and by we I mean the workforce management professionals, are probably after IT, the most technical part of the organization in most cases. So we are leading, or we are able to lead this data transformation and influence in your own company on becoming a data-driven company. And of course, the last piece, data engineering, and it's because most of the artificial intelligence projects or machine learning projects that don't succeed is because they're not scalable, and it's because the lack of proper data engineering. So you definitely need to train your people in data engineering. That's pretty much my view and priorities for the upcoming years. How to build those two capabilities within the company by automating the real-time management piece. Thank you, and I give you back Dr. Shiva.
Thanks, Sebastian, for very insightful keynote on the current happening things. So please stay back, and we will have your questions, audience questions for you during the roundtable. Now I invite Tatiana. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure introducing Tatiana. Tatiana happens to be one of the well-known WFM leaders in the global market. People know her, her name, and her passion towards WFM. Tatiana comes with more than 2 decades of experience in WFM, very passionate in the area. Tatiana is a Master's in Business Administration from Regis University. And she has worked in companies like IBM, T-Mobile, Convergys, Staple, and Amex prior to Uber. Currently, Tatiana plays a leadership role, and she heads the global WFM, and she has a very big team. She's based in the US. Tatiana is going to inaugurate and lead a WFM Women Leadership Forum. You may be wondering that what is this WFM Women Leadership? GWFM new initiative is to encourage more of women leaders in WFM. We want to encourage diversity. This is something that we've been doing. We started doing it from this month. So we want to care for women talent and encourage them to be their career and continue their career. There's the intention of it. And Tatiana is going to share very good insights about how WFM professionals and competency of WFM professionals and kind of roles. Very insightful stuff And besides my introduction, she's going to share her introduction. And she's really passionate about a lot of other things besides WFM. Let's hear from her.
Thank you so much, Shiva.
It's great to have you with us, Tatiana. Besides your busy schedule, I know that it's really well scheduled, and it's really gives us great pleasure having you with us today. And looking forward to hearing.
Let me just make sure I've got the right screen on here. I don't think I do. There we go. Okay, excellent. So I apologize. My screen, I have two different screens. If you see me looking away, it's because I'm looking at one screen, not the other. I'm going to try to do this. So Shiva, thanks so much. As you mentioned, I actually have been with Uber. It'll be 3 years in April. And I'm the head of workforce management. So I have teams in all the major regions. So LATAM, US and Canada, EMEA, and APAC. So I head up workforce management as well as the command center. I have held a lot of different positions, worked my way up from being a call center agent, as well as being an ACD engineer, SQL analyst, and then kind of fell into workforce management and found my passion there. So, and just a little bit of a fun fact about me, I'm very passionate about doing triathlon. I've actually completed 2 full Ironman and 5 half Ironman, and then a number of other races. One of my most notable ones is I did a 5K on crutches once. I do not advise doing that. It was a bad idea. Okay, so we are going to talk today a little bit about workforce management and the professionals in workforce management. So, you know, as I've grown up in the industry and I've seen, you know, how we've evolved, we've really seen workforce management grow from very tactical type of work where, you know, reliance on formulas and spreadsheets, where those are still tools of the trade, but really this is more of a strategist position, and understanding your business needs, understanding stakeholders, being able to anticipate and really be a strategist, as well as being able to integrate the complexities within the business that you support, and really move into more of a consultative type of role. So I want to talk a little bit about how we think about that here at Uber and previous jobs that I've been in. So when I think about workforce management, we have roles, of course, that are more tactical in nature, as well as roles that are more strategic. So I'm sharing with you how we think about different types of roles and how that evolves here within the organization that we have. Now, keep in mind, you know, we are a large organization, over 200 WFM professionals working at Uber. So lots of different types of work and different expectations and opportunities actually for career growth within the team. So typically, as I'm sure many of you are familiar, most people would come into workforce management as an RTA or real-time analyst. You know, tactical, you know, more tactical in nature, tends to be a lot more reactionary. A lot of our folks come in, you know, having been agents on the floor and move into this role. And then as the skill set increases, you know, people may move into more of a scheduler type of role or a short range planner type of role. So the way we think about this is these are very formulaic types of positions, roles that require a lot more manipulation, you know, of the data, using WFM tools, spreadsheets, things like that. As we start to get into roles, we actually break our forecasting into both long and short range forecasting. So short range planning is, and I would say scheduling to an extent, are really where you start to be a little bit more understanding of the proactiveness within the positions, and you start to move into more strategy. Not to say that real time doesn't do that, but you know, the nature of real time in itself is more reactionary to the business environment. So with our short range planning, the way that we think about this role is the common areas that they are focused on is going to be, you know, Erlang formulas, different types of forecast methodologies, really taking, you know, our long, you know, range forecasts at the weekly level, breaking that into the interval and the daily patterns as well. And one of the things that you can see on this slide here is how we think about sort of the math, WFM functional expertise, and the importance of that within each role versus problem solving, stakeholder management strategy. So you can see that as the roles kind of progress up, while there's still, you always need to have an understanding of how the WFM functional expertise works. More and more of the job becomes more of a strategist in problem solving. So short range planning is an example of this. We also do capacity planning, so this is the way that we define capacity planning is when you understand the contact volumes, what type of headcount is necessary to solve for this. These roles typically sit in our captive sites. So Uber is set up where some of our locations are, captive, and then we outsource quite a bit as well. So these roles specifically sit within the captive sites to try to translate those volumes. So this starts to have more and more of that stakeholder management piece of it, because now you're negotiating with site operations, facility, training, really trying to understand, what growth, either growth or pulling back on headcount might look like and how you respond to that. So again, not every solution requires that we add headcount. Occasionally we may try to find alternative methods, but understanding like how to work within a budget and how to present options, to your site operation. So you can see we really think of like capacity planning and short range planning very similarly in terms of how much of this is math versus how much of this is problem solving. Now, one of the biggest deviations that I've seen here at Uber has been that with program management, we in some locations this might be called like a long range forecaster or long range planner, and that's actually how I was trying to think of the role when I first joined. But I quickly learned that this position is very different than that. This is almost like a WFM strategist or consultant. So yes, they're interpreting the various volumes that are coming in. What will that mean in terms of the contact, where to put the work, how much of it gets allocated to one partner over the other, what should the footprint strategy look like. One of the things that's very different about this role is WFM has a seat at the table in these decisions. I've certainly worked in places where decisions on where we're going to put the work, how do you look at quality as opposed to just capacity, what are cost implications? Oftentimes, workforce management is the recipient of this information, whereas one of the things that we have really worked towards is to be a participant and an input into these decisions as well. So it's not so much that someone is saying, okay, you understand the volume, I want 50% to go to this location, 25% to this location, 25% to the other location. Workforce management is really understanding what the different business needs are and working to make recommendations and to show what those implications are in terms of different solutions. So there may be 30 different ways to achieve something, and each of those is going to have a different impact and cost of the business. So we call this a program manager because it is such a strategist in this role, and they work very, very closely with the regional stakeholders within each mega region that they work in or each sub-region that they work in to be able to really understand the implications. These roles became extremely critical as well as we were going into COVID and saw capacity quickly shifting and being able to understand what those implications are. And then as you can see, we also have our WFM regional heads as well. So this position is really responsible for all of the roles underneath them, very much a strategist. While they certainly need to understand the workforce functionality and expertise, there is less that they are actually doing themselves and more that they're supervising or overseeing the rest of the team. One of the things that's a bit interesting too is if you look at this, we actually think about competencies. And so what's important in terms of skill set a little bit differently. So you can see for the more strategic roles of the regional head, the program manager, there's more emphasis on communication, organizing and strategic planning, problem solving, less of a executional delivery as expected in the other roles. So these roles all fit together, and not every skill set necessarily lends itself to the next level. But it's really important for us to be able to share this with the teams, and so that they can kind of think about that as they're mapping out their careers. So the other thing that we thought that was really important as as the team grows and we're trying to attract talent, folks either from within the organization or attracting talent from external applicants as well, is how you should be thinking about, as you grow your career, within workforce management, how we in particular think about this. So there's different tracks within workforce management. The one that I'm sharing with you right now is what I would call the tactical support track. So in this one, we really are thinking of this at 3 different levels. So novice is somebody who's brand new to workforce management, maybe only been in the workforce for, a year or 2, possibly coming over to us as an agent. And really, what are the roles? This is generally an RTA role, what their scope is, what the responsibilities are. So the reason we thought this was important is we wanted people to really understand how we think about readiness for the next level. So the expectation is that you would probably come into this, this entry-level role as an RTA, but then where could you grow your career if you're staying in that tactical track? And again, this is mostly in our captive site. So the next level would be a beginner. So you've had a little bit of workforce management experience, you've been in contact center for a little bit longer. Generally, you're going to have, a year or so in some sort of workforce management background, either as a scheduler or real time. But then how the work changes. So we wanted to really make it people understand like how we thought of the different levels, why this might look different. So if you look at the scope of an RTA that is more beginner is going to be focused on a single region. It's going to be very data entry, very tactical, limited into the number of teams that you're responsible for supporting. As you get into more of a senior role, whether it's a senior RTA or a scheduler or one of our entry-level reporting analysts, you might be supporting multiple teams. You might have you might look across multiple, not regions so much, but you may support a region that's outside of the one that you're sitting in. So just different sorts of things, being able to share like how the responsibilities change. So if you are, for instance, a senior RTA, what differentiates you from a regular RTA is you're starting to build reports. You're going to be a power user in whatever WFM tool your organization has. You're going to be able to create dashboards, maybe do some ad hoc queries. So a little bit more experience and bring a lot more of the technical piece of it. And then as we mature, we wanted to also show like how that would grow. So we've got senior schedulers and senior reporting analysts. We start to get into some of the forecasting pieces as well. So again, trying to really make it clear so that people can understand the expectations. You can see how the qualifications increase here. We're expecting people to have, generally about 3 years of experience when they move into these higher level roles, and the different sorts of expectations. These roles start to work more with the strategic levels of the organization, the capacity planners, the short range planning as well. So then I wanted to share how we think about the strategic professional track. So this is an interesting one for us. Not every single role generally comes from a tactical, which I know seems a little bit surprising because most people think of, I'm going to start out in WFM and I'm going to start as like an RTA, maybe move to scheduler, maybe move to forecasting. That doesn't always happen in this organization. So it certainly can, but we've also taken people in that have had other types of work experience, perhaps consulting experience. Maybe they have, worked in some sort of supply chain, and that's certainly possible as well. So the way that we think about this is we've got some that are novice to WFM. So maybe you're coming in from a different type of organization. You haven't had WFM experience. You may come in as a workforce specialist. And so you're going to be doing some pretty core work, but still learning the math and the functionality of workforce management here. And generally we would expect you to need, quite a bit of oversight and direction. But once you're given a task, you can complete it. You're doing a good job with it. You would have an undergrad in this. And you can see as this grows from beginner to intermediate to advanced, how the expectations of the experience that you have, as well as how we might be thinking about, degrees and the type of work. So you go from the workforce specialist, which may only support a sub-region, to a beginner, which may have mega region responsibilities. It might be multiple sites that you're responsible for. You're able to run some basic projects on your own. And then as you get into the intermediate or even advanced levels, the expectations with your stakeholders becomes much more advanced, and you're able to make recommendations and be able to show several options when various business problems are given to you. And as you can see, one of the things that's a little bit different here is we also consider PM or project management background as well. So a lot of the things that we do really do get run as projects. So, if we're launching in a new country or a new city, or you have a brand new product, they're oftentimes you're being asked to plan for and forecast for things that have never happened. So there's no historical. We don't know how, if we're going to start to do pharmacy delivery in Latin America, if we've never done that before, how do you actually build that and plan for that appropriately? So you really have to take some very incomplete data sets to be able to build something here. And then we also have our management track. So, our management track runs anywhere from like a team lead. So you might be leading a team of RTAs to managing a single site team. So this might be like a captive COE. That's what we call our captive sites. You might be a captive site manager. You may be a manager of managers, or you may lead an entire head. So again, this also grows with expectations, and people go into different tracks. It's very possible to stay on the individual contributor track and still grow a lot within the company, or if you want to move more into the management side of things. Again, wanting to be really clear with the teams of how we think about the roles, how we think about qualifications for the roles, what type of projects you need to be thinking about as well. And I think that is it for me. So the one thing I want to just share with you and take away is, traditionally doing just the WFM functional, expertise, that is certainly an important part of workforce management, but it's not the only part. So I really encourage you to be thinking about your teams differently and the skill sets differently, so that they can become more of a consultant in their area. All right, and that is it for me, Shiva.
Thanks, Tatiana. That's really amazing insights about the roles and responsibilities. And I would say that this is something like a WFM competency. Every organization should really have this. And if organization not having any of these things, it's like a mess. And they may not have the career track. This is really very insightful, and I'm sure that in an Uber, we're really managing it very strategically.
Thank you.
I just opened a few of the questions from the audience. If there are any questions, let me see that question. I'm just going to mute. Hi, Carolas. Yeah.
Hi, thank you. So, based on the structure that you outlined for the WFM teams to be organized, I was thinking, how can we make sure that the highest levels of management that we have in the team are experts enough in the first levels of workforce management, like real time, so they can be able to take decisions in those teams to improve them, if they were never part of them. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So, one of the things that we do is when people, before they join the organization, they actually have to go through a pretty extensive process where they do a creative exercise. And so those creative exercises are generally going to have both functional expertise as well as some sort of problem solving element. So we may actually ask somebody to, build a staffing plan by giving them, some very general type of information and seeing like what they do with it. So that's often very telling on whether or not somebody can understand WFM well enough to manage the team. So there's a pretty involved process in order to start here, and we have various different creative exercises that we use that we will gear depending on which type of role it is they're applying for, and that's generally worked very well for us.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tatiana, for your time. Really appreciate your time that you have taken, and your insights have been really useful. I'm sure that the fellow WFM professionals really got good insights, and I'm sure that some of the companies might even think of implementing these competencies and roles and kind of career ladder within WFM. It's really commendable and truly insightful. Thank you so much. taking your time out and stay back. Looking forward to, thanks, Adriana. So now I would invite Paul. Hi, Paul. Good to have you.
Yeah. Thank you, Shiva. It's great to be here.
Before Paul could start, Paul Chance comes with 25 years of experience in WFM tech. He has worked for organizations like Nokia, Genesis, and now with NICE. He's a veteran in WFM tech, and he knows each and every aspects of WFM tech worldwide, and he's been associated with NICE since for some time. And we were discussing about WFM research, what's really happening, what is future of WFM, what is future of WFM tech. Like a lot of insights that Paul has been doing, and very deep WFM tech research is really gone through, and really spending a lot of time on WFM tech research. It gives me great pleasure having you with us, Paul. It's really great privilege and pride to have you with us. With this, please carry on with your keynote. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Shiva, and it's an honor to share this afternoon with the professionals that are on the call today. It's interesting, as we sat back and we were thinking about what was going on in the marketplace. I think McKinsey summed it up quite well. They came out with a report back in May that said in the last 8 weeks, and this was back in May of 2020, in the last 8 weeks, the world has seen a tsunami of rise of digital interactions. Like 5 years of time has compressed into 8 weeks. And that's how fast the adoption has taken. So I was having this conversation earlier today with a few dozen companies out of the EMEA region. And we were talking about how many companies around, or how many individuals around the world are really using the internet today. And I would get answers like 1 billion or 2 billion. And it's really interesting to me that the research is actually showing that as of the last few weeks, we're seeing about 4.6 active internet users, and most of those are accessing the internet through their phone, through their mobile device. And almost as many people that have a mobile device are using it for social media purposes, which really has a huge impact into the way that workforce management takes place within the companies. So what is that impact? And it begins with the concept that consumers are now doing research way before they ever come into a brick and mortar store, or before they make a decision to buy something or get some type of service. They're having a conversation with a friend mentions something, so they pick up their mobile phone and they start researching it. They start identifying, what do I need to do here, or how much does that item cost, or what about if I travel to this location, what hotels or travel companies should I work with? And it begins with this research well before ever reaching out to a specific company. Today, the average customer journey is going to involve, on average, between 3 and 5 different channels in this journey, which is quite different than it was just a few short years ago. Well, this has some significant impact on businesses, and specifically, how do businesses staff their service centers, their contact centers, their sales centers, etc.? Because it has transformed how our consumers are looking for help. They want to know, when are these interactions going to be available? How can I interact with these companies? They want service anytime, anywhere. They want immediate service. They don't want to wait 20 minutes on hold. They want to use any channel that they decide they want to. If they decide they want to use Facebook, great, I want to use Facebook, and that's what the customer's wanting. So it goes way beyond the traditional voice metrics that we used to use, and even beyond email and chat. So as this applies to WFM, we understand that historically there's really 4 functions, regardless of what technology you're using. There's 4 different steps. You've got to figure out where the data is coming from. And what is the integrity of that data? How do you get that data? Is it automatic? Do you have to pull the data, whether that's coming from an ACD, an email server, a chat server, a social media hub, whatever? And then you have to calculate, what is my requirement? Then you work on your schedule. You optimize that schedule based on preferences and availability and business rules and all that type of information. And then finally, the schedule's published and you're in the day, and you've got to deal with that change management that Tatiana was just talking about with real time, and actually the first presentation as well. You know, it's a lot of people are tied up in the RTA process. Well, WFM really is focused around two assumptions. One is that it's going to be a sequential flow of work, and the second is it's a contiguous work stream. That is, one phone call will come after another. You're there and you pick up the phone, you deal with that, you hang up, another call rings in, and you answer that call. And that's kind of the history of how our WFM processes have taken place. Well, the issue with digital is it's not that simple anymore. It's no longer sequential and contiguous. And so what I want to spend a few minutes talking about is all the repercussions of these different media channels and these digital channels, what the consequences are to WFM, and how you as an organization, or we as an industry, need to maybe think outside of the lines a bit to how do we deal with these issues. So let's take an example. This is a series of interactions that's handled by a single employee. Maybe an email comes in, and then right after that happens, there's a customer that sends a chat message in. And then another chat comes in, and then there's more chats that go back and forth. There's an email that goes out. There's phone calls that take place. You take a break, then you come back and you work on social for a little bit, and you do some other things. Well, there's a lot of different types of interactions that are taking place. You have interruptions. You have simultaneous interactions where one agent might be handling more than one type of interaction at a time. You have time where the agent is working, maybe doing research, but the interaction is out of focus. So how do you handle and track your average handle time? You have asynchronous interactions. You have interactions that maybe start from a chat and then are elevated to an email or maybe even a phone call. How do you account for all this when you start looking at your forecast and your schedule? Well, there's a few ways that you can handle it, and there's not really a right or a wrong way, but the key here is that you need the flexibility to handle it whichever way every line of business that you have requires. So here's one way that you might handle it, and it's by type of interaction. So you may have an email queue and an email team, and their job is to focus on any emails that come in. And there's some benefits to that, but there's also some cons because you lose customer journey, continuous interaction with the same agent that way. You may have different chat queues. You obviously will have different phone call queues or a social media queue. And that's one way you may forecast and schedule. But you also may look at this and say, I want to handle my forecast and my schedule now by customer experience rather than channel. So the first customer is just all handled in email. The second one is being handled all in chat. The third interaction is chat, and it gets escalated to a phone call. The fourth one is a chat and an outbound email, and then maybe the fifth one is just a phone call. So there's lots of different ways, and so companies may actually blend these together in some sort of a hybrid method. And the key is having the flexibility to be able to handle this any way that you need to. So what's needed is some sort of the right tool to handle these different problems. And it goes beyond just email and chat, LinkedIn. There are dozens and dozens of different kinds of digital channels that are out there. This is just a sampling of some of the ones that NICE Contact supports. That's really not the point. It's just that there's a whole lot of different types of channels that your customers may want to interact with you on. So when you are dealing with these channels, you need to ask yourself, how do we want to prioritize? If there's going to be multiple types of chat interactions that come to me, I need to be able to prioritize which ones I need to work on first. Well, that also implies then I need to be able to do interruptions. Well, both prioritization and interruptions impact, plus you need to be able to have simultaneous interactions. Well, you need to be able to plan that by type of interaction as well as by agents. Some agents are much more equipped to be able to handle more simultaneous interactions than others. So it's becoming more and more complex. If that weren't enough, another thing to consider is how much are you adding on to your agents as far as their ability to deal with this. It's a concept called cognitive load. And the idea is the more you put on them and the more pressure you put on, that works in getting more stuff done. But at some point you peak and it's going to have diminishing returns. So you need to understand how many interactions can your agents actually take care of at one time. And understanding that that could be different for different agents. So a number of years ago, the concept of skills-based routing came, and it became a huge thing. Almost every contact center in the world uses it today. And there is a part of planning for skills-based routing called multi-skill efficiencies. And it's a factor that you use in your planning, and it comes into your scheduling as well. And to be able to account for what if you've got agents that can handle multiple skills, how do you schedule that so that you can take advantage of those efficiencies and not overstaff? Well, digital is not just another type of skill. There are other attributes that are appropriate for digital, and think of it more as a different dimension. So if you have skill A or skill B or skill C, now you're going across with digital channels for another dimension, and it makes it even more complicated than it was before. And what this gets at is the concept of the core underlying mathematics that operate workforce management. That for years and years, for decades, workforce management has this set of mathematics under the covers that works, and then works with skills. And how does it handle those skills? Well, what I'm stating is digital is so complex, it requires a core rewrite of that underlying mathematics to be able to handle all these correctly. So there's also this concept that what does machine learning have to do with all this? Well, machine learning can automate those tasks that, we could do, and it's a repetitive task, but it's not about replacing people with ML. It's about allowing ML to do what it does best to allow your people to focus on what people do best. So in closing here, this is my last slide, and I just put this slide up just to say there's a lot of other things to consider. And we're talking with companies all around the world on these very topics, on how are they handling things like immediate response versus deferred response. How are you dealing with your deferred forecast based on capacity within different digital channels? What about session concurrency? Then you get into things like asynchronous interactions or elevated interactions, AHT that are longer than the stat interval, or what happens when the employees are self-selecting the work items that they're working on. Now, this doesn't even get into the other options. How does self-service and robots and KPIs have to do with digital? For example, what does occupancy really mean in a world with digital where you're having 4 interactions at the same time? What does utilization mean? What does service level mean? And all these concepts are things that need to be rethought as we explore the digital world. And we have a lot of other content. We'd love to have dialogue and learn what you're doing around these concepts. So if you have any thoughts, any questions at all, we love to have a conversation with you and understand, what your requirements are and what you're doing, because this is really the direction that we see the next leap forward for workforce management is around digital. So thank you.
Thanks, Paul, for a very concise presentation on the WFM tech, focusing on NICE. NICE has been very phenomenal in terms of having the great market share in the global market. It's really commendable. If you have any quick questions for Paul, we'll open up questions for Paul. Okay. I don't see anything. And anyway, we have Troy there we have one of the speaker from ICE who's going to be there in the roundtable. Move forward with that. Thanks, Paul, for having you with us. Truly great learning from you. Please stay back.
Great.
Now, with this, I invite Sebastian back to the roundtable. Sebastian, can we have you? Hi, Sebastian. I'm just going to invite other fellow panelists. Just we can have a quick introduction of them. Can you have Juan?
Hey, everyone.
And we're going to have Troy from ICE again. Troy, can we have you on the camera? Great. Good try. Good to have you. And how about Hevan? Hevan, are you there? In fact, he had some emergency. Had his top management called him for some emergency. Said that is trying to be back. But Sean, in fact, has some medical emergency with his doctor. He'll try to join. Sean might join us a little while. In the meantime, let's kickstart with the introduction of Roundtable. Before that, just I'll have a quick introduction of the speakers. Before we could start the context, I'll just have a quick introduction of the speaker. John, if you could just introduce yourself for a quick minute.
Sure. So, hi, everyone. My name is Juan Manuel Gambetta. I work in IBM in the GTS unit. For those that do not know, at GTS, we do IT strategic outsourcing for all the major companies in the world. I specifically work in WFM at GTS, and I do support the service lines that build the GTS unit. My role is called GSO support, as each service line is called a global service line owner. So, been working at IBM for about 25 years now. I'm a husband to a beautiful wife, father of 2 wonderful kids, and that's me.
Great, John. Good to have you with us. And now I request Troy to introduce himself for a minute, so we'll move ahead. Troy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Troy Plott. I lead the product management team at NICE for workforce management. That essentially means my team and I are responsible for the product strategy and the roadmap of where we're going next with WFM. I've been in the WFM space for more years than I would probably like to admit publicly, over 25, I won't give you the exact number. And about half of that was actually as a user and a customer of workforce management solutions. So I've used NICE, of course, and many of our competitors over the course of my long life. The other half, about the last 12 and a half years, I've been working at NICE and at other companies actually building WFM solutions. So a bit of a mixed background between being in the call center itself, working in workforce management, many roles similar to the ones that you guys have, and then also in software companies working on solutions for WFM.
Good try. Great having you with us. Is Ivan there? Are you there, Ivan?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Is it possible to have you?
Looks like, yes.
Okay, fantastic. Okay. Great to have you with us. So besides all the others, okay, great. I want just have a quick introduction before we could start the roundtable.
Sure. Hi team, my name is Ivan Mora from Colombia. I've been working for 20 years in the BPO industry, about 15 years in workforce. As many of you, I started as an agent, and I'm currently workforce director in Nexa BPO. I've been working with offshore and domestic accounts, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, great to have you with us, Ivan. And Sean, in fact, has some medical emergency, so he may join it later. However, let's get on with the roundtable. So with this, I invite Sebastian to lead the roundtable as a moderator. Over to you, Sebastian.
Okay, thank you, Shiva. Well, as Paul and we shared during the conversations at the beginning, we all know how WFM has been evolving for the last years, and with the digitization era that we are in and all the data, we need to continue evolving our function. So that's part of what we want to discuss here and with these leaders. What are those priorities that you guys are seeing as the most important for 2021? How the WFM technology is evolving and how it is mandatory for our organizations. And finally, how the strategy for WFM is reshaping in the planning and forecasting perspective. So, Juan, would you like to start?
Sure. So, Sebastian, this is actually very good because all the presentations I've been listening to so far struck the right notes on what looks to me should be the priorities for this year. So while talking on our specific case in GTS, one of the things we did during 2020 was making sure that the whole WFM organization acquired agile skills so we could start working in agile squads today. So right now we are all distributed into agile squads and using the agile methodology. But that was just the beginning. As you went through in your presentation, our priority for these years is in what we call data science skills, and they are pretty much the ones you summed up. We are really interested that our practitioners, especially the ones that are seated at strategic roles and strategic planning, have the right skills regarding programming languages, like especially Python or R. Python we favor most because of the automation possibilities that it offers against R, and the huge library it has for data sciences, for the data science projects. When we compare that to R, it fits better our organization. So Python, I would think, is one of the key priorities for our practitioner skills that can take them later to go on into moving into the machine learning and AI realms. That's not our main goal right now, but that's a long-term view for having the right practitioners understanding how to use those tools. And a very important concept I heard today is mainly not having the tools make the decisions for us, but pointing us to the things we do best and leaving the work they do best for the tools. So those are the main items for the long road. We also are looking at design thinking and UX as part of the skills we want to build on the team to make sure that we take on this with a full approach, not just with a look at what our team needs, but also what our clients needs within GTS. So those are the most important priorities for us during this year. On the tech view, the business is moving at such a fast pace. It's evolving so quickly that our technology needs to keep that pace to support our clients right away. So that's again why it's really important that our key people has the right skills in all those tools so we can address the complex problems that were presented today, and they can create flexible solutions for those. They can create automations when needed. So we already have our set of tools, but that is bound to change throughout the years because of the high speed the business has and the changing needs our business has. Outsourcing is a really, if I look at the landscape of outsourcing 10 years ago and what it is today, it's a completely different picture. So that's how fast we need to evolve. Even not just 10 years, if I look 3 years back, it's evolved into a completely different thing. So that's why we need to stay flexible on that. Finally, on our strategy and how it's working and reshaping, we are working in our organization to make sure we have a seat at the decision table, make sure we are the trusted advisors for the decision makers in the unit, so we can provide them with the right data so we can allocate our teams across the world, and we're talking large teams on almost every single country at all the geographies across the world. So we are working to make sure we can provide them the right insights so they can take the right decisions. Our main goal in the organization is to continually provide the right skills at the right cost, at the right time, at the right location. So that's the tactical view. That's what we do every day. But we also want to move that into a forward-looking view that continually addresses the needs that come not from the right now, but also a year from now, 2 years from now, what our organization will look like, what we will need, and how we will address those needs for our clients. So that's my view.
Thank you, Juan. I really like your approach in having a seat on the decision table. And I think also it's key that WFM has that role. As you mentioned, we are the ones that provide data, and that's why I also can't agree more with the data scientist approach and how we should start evolving to a data science function to own the data. So thank you. Troy, would you want to give us your insights on this?
Sure, I'd be happy to. In terms of the most important priorities for 2021, and actually Paul already covered one of the couple that I have to mention, but digital is really at the top of our list. And it's been kind of an interesting transition being in the industry as long as I have. You know, digital isn't new. It's been around for many, many years. It grows and it changes and it expands. But, you know, many years ago, it was branded multimedia instead of digital. And there was a period where it was called omni-channel. But essentially, for the last, 15 or 20 years, channels have been expanding in the contact center. The original ones of email and chat have continued to grow, but as Paul highlighted earlier, the recent expansion is an explosion. So it went from, gradual increases to just huge adoption that we're seeing across many of our customers across all the markets around the world. And so for us, the number one priority for sure is ensuring that we continue to grow our digital support. We already do support it today, but as more and more of those channels come on board, as Paul said, it's important that WFM providers update their models, update their mathematics, and even integrate machine learning and more AI into the process so that ultimately WFM customers don't have to be experts in doing the math digital. They need to rely on an application to handle most of that stuff. The second trend that I would say that we consider very important, and again, seeing large growth, is agent engagement focus. It's another gradual and changing thing that's been going on for many years, but many years ago, you wouldn't have thought of agent engagement as a WFM topic. Our goal was to maximize profit and not really care about agent engagement. But over the many years and decades, as all the pieces came together, the cost of attrition and the cost of low agent engagement on the WFM process became more and more of a problem for many of our customers. And so, continue to expand the ability to engage agents at a higher level without giving up the flexibility that you need within WFM. So I think, there are some that years ago probably viewed the two as opposites, meaning you can either have engaged agents or you can have a highly effective set of schedules. And the goal today is not that they're opposites, but that you need to find a balance between those two. And the balance is definitely shifting, we see in our customers, more toward engagement, although without giving up too much. I've not yet met a customer that wants to give up service level for engagement, so I think that's still the case, but having tools that enable agents to feel engaged, not just about their schedule, but managing their schedule, maybe building their own schedule, controlling the changes to their schedule, having true flexibility, maximum flexibility in how they manage their lives. Some of that has been around for a long time, and I think has grown in recent years to become more necessary. Some of it is a real cultural shift as the employment window and the age of today's newly employed agents has shifted. So has the culture of what they expect from companies they work for. And so, when I was an agent 100 years ago, that engagement wasn't something we got to ask about at the time. But looking at today's agents, they have a different perspective on what it means to work somewhere, and they expect more from their employers in terms of flexibility and adaptability. And when you don't meet those needs, they're willing and happily able to go somewhere else. Those are probably the two largest priorities. The third that I'll throw in just as a, it's a more COVID-related thing I think that we're still seeing is an ongoing trend, is dealing with the future of blended workforce. So, many companies have handled work at home and they've handled work in the office. but they've not had to handle an environment where their agents are going back and forth, and they may have a rotating schedule on when I can be in the office and how to be in the office and how many days a week should I be in the office, or that kind of thing. I think many people are still figuring out their approach. Not a lot of organizations that we've worked with have yet decided what their permanent approach to that will be. But as we talk to customers and analysts, we for sure see that as a third trend that, in planning for late 21 and beyond, many customers are trying to figure out, once I get the protocols from my corporate office or security or whoever handles your safety components, how will we manage agents that way? How do we build scheduling in a way that makes sense? Because again, we're accustomed to thinking about agents that work at home being having a higher amount of flexibility in their schedule. But we're also used to them being at home most of the time. We're not used to having things where Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays they're at home, and Tuesdays and Thursdays they might come into the office, and that being a permanent state. So those are really the top three in terms of priorities that we see for 2021. In terms of the technology and how technology is evolving, and making it mandatory for organizations, it's kind of an interesting question. In my opinion, it's been mandatory for organizations for decades, but I think it's becoming almost unsurvivable if you don't have it at this point, especially if you're an organization of scale. There are a couple ways that I think, and again, they're not new ones that many have already mentioned, but for digital as an example, even companies that didn't need a WFM solution before, didn't think they needed one, or were handling it through a spreadsheet, when they get to digital, they realize that's too much to handle in a spreadsheet. They can't write the math fast enough to deal with that. So I think, as with many times in the past, the trend of becoming mandatory or necessary has a driver. And the current driver for us, at least, or what we're seeing in our customer base, is digital. Some of that is brand new customers that are coming to NICE that are saying, we've decided your approach to digital is better, and we want that. Some of them, though, are existing customers that are expanding their business and saying, well, up until now, we didn't really manage digital, or we didn't have as many digital resources as we do now, and we need to figure out how to manage them. And so we need to add more seats, more agents, more scheduling capability to an existing system. So I think that's one big example. And then the second, again, is engagement. We do get tons of requests, and we are constantly evolving our engagement platform on the types of things that agents can do. And lesser pace than digital, but both are growing pretty rapidly. Sorry, did you have a question, Sebastian?
No, sorry, you cut off, but then you went back. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so if you missed the last piece, it was really an engagement. So we're continuing to evolve our engagement because, the industry and analysts and our customers are saying, look, engagement isn't going away. In fact, it's getting bigger and more complicated to deal with. And so we're also making heavy investments in that area. Lastly, and it's really kind of a summary of our strategy in general, is how is WFM strategy reshaping things in terms of planning and forecasting. One of the things that we started about 5 years ago was really a mass expansion of our capabilities to go beyond what we at the time called core WFM. So if you think about the basics of forecasting, scheduling, and intraday management as core, there are elements outside of that WFM teams have been dealing with forever, but they were smaller and maybe they weren't as complex, so they were able to do them manually, or they were able to do other things. So I'll give you a couple examples. The biggest areas that we've grown and how our strategy is reshaping that is the planning, for sure. So long-term planning has become much more important, especially when it touches budget and financial planning in our customer base. Attrition is the second component of that we have been focused on for the last couple of years. And that one does seem a bit odd, but if you, at face value, people are like, well, attrition, that isn't a WFM problem, but it is a WFM problem. It's probably, honestly, one of the largest unaddressed problems in the world in WFM is the cost and impact of the agents that you lose and the amount of time it takes to onboard agents. And we saw a large gap both at the front end of the planning cycle in that I know how many agents I need, and I move over to my WFM system and I know how many I have. And in the middle, there was this black hole of, well, what do I do about that? If other people were busy doing interviews, but at the end of the day, if you don't have the right headcount that you need, by the time you build schedules, you have a problem. And so attrition is for sure a WFM problem. And then lastly, and it kind of falls under our engagement umbrella, but what I would really consider automation and intelligent automation of a lot of the activities of managing agents. So, you know, the basic things of everything from basic stuff to getting people signed up for overtime and managing schedule changes and trades, all the way up to complex transactions. You know, we didn't feel that the current tool set that we looked at and had 5 years ago was enough to really call it above and beyond core WFM. So, you know, our strategy has been for the last 5 years, and we adapted a little each year, but it basically is still the same, which is go beyond that, go above and beyond what core used to be, put a better planning tool in place, put a recruitment and hiring tool in place, put a more robust set of automation tools in the hands of workforce management users so that they don't have to spend their days processing manual requests for stuff, but they can actually, you know, be an analyst. I think one of the games that we're trying to change is, you know, too many analysts are not getting to do analysis. They're data entry clerks far too much of the time, and they don't get a chance to actually run the business. So I will say that as a former WFM person, and for you guys as well, I'm sure you hear this, none of this is to replace the WFM team. So when your budget people immediately ask, if I buy this, can I get rid of X number of WFM people? No, it's to put them back on the job they were hired to do. They shouldn't be data entry clerks their entire career. They need to be able to do their job as an analyst and run the business. So long-winded answer on the strategy, but those are the key elements that we see and that we focus on.
Thank you, Troy. You've brought two really key points for me, which is first the hybrid workforce that we now have to manage, and the mix between brick and mortar and working from home and the challenges that it represents, as well as the advantages that, you know, having a remote and gives you, for example, in recruiting, a lot of capacity increase. But how to engage with those people that are far from home, far from the business, and that are not going to be able to join a location anytime. So I really agree that one of the priorities for us is how to manage those agents and those that hybrid workforce that we have. And the second point for me, attrition. I agree with you. This is also a WFM. Even though it's highly related to HR, and most of the companies, the owner is HR, I do agree that workforce has a huge piece in that, and that we also have to do our part to not just manage, but understand and see how can we improve the experience for the agent overall. So thank you, Troy. And last but not least, Ivan, thank you for being here. Can you give us your insights on this?
Sure, Sebastian, thank you. Well, I think for 2021, we come from a different scenario in 2020. I think best is yet to come. We've learned a lot in the last 2020 in regards to scenarios, a challenging situation. So the workforce response to the crisis, we learned a lot. I think for 2021, my priorities, the first one is training in new skills to cover with the workforce roles as real-time analysts, schedulers, and planners. Roles about data analysts, I agree with the speakers that data scientists need right now. So we are going to do a strong focus in the training of new skills to be able to review what we are doing right now, because the workforce process, we already know what we have to do, the models, the calculations, the Erlang algorithms, the offline for outbound or inbound, what we need. But with this new scenario, we need to consider new strategies, new approaches to calculate FTEs, I think we need to update some models to gain efficiency, to do more scenarios with blending scenarios, maybe to take advantage of the flexibility that we have right now, and to add value through the workforce analysis, which is the name of the strategy, workforce analysis, to share with the operations comparisons of the impact that we have currently, the benefits from having agents working at home, less absenteeism, that sometimes we have more shrinkage or more average handling time due to IT issues sometimes. So we need to keep on a good frequency adding value through the workforce analysis. I think the priority number one, add value through the team and give them the training that they require. I think we need to understand again the trends of the volumes, because the contact rate has changed, and we need to request to the vendors more information about the plans to make a more accurate forecast. For instance, we normally do forecasts using trends, but with everything that happened in 2020, the scenario changed, and we have different contact rates in different channels. We now have to update the models to make forecasts not only of agents, but visual IVR, bots, and any other channels that maybe the vendors are going to implement. So that's another key point for 2020, to update the current models that we use to make. With regards to the second topic, which is the tech part, I think everything has been created right now. What we need is to invest and acquire all the appless or gain efficiency in regards of the modules that already are in the market. So it will help us not only for the other support areas such training, but we can have a better scheduling using these tools. So what we have to do in work to invest in these modules or develop them internally. And the strategy for 2021 will see the automation mainly is to have a big picture of the scenario that provide us real-time alerts, not only for each account, but company, how the system looks like. We are having a plan to review the current mod formats or templates for the capacity plans to make them stronger, include certain things that we consider are going to add value and reduce the risk in the capacity plans.
Okay, thank you, Ivan. Well, I can recall in some of the priorities that we all share as leaders. One of those is training. I think we all agree in how our people need to be trained for new skills and capabilities that our organizations and the world is requiring now, and that's tied to digitalization and social media, and how we also have to be prepared to manage those asynchronous interactions now, as Paul was sharing, and also how are we facing those challenges on managing hybrid workforce. I think that's also another priority for all of us across. And finally, the data-centric approach now, and how we have to be guardians of data, and also make sure that we are using data in a way that gets the most value for the organization. So thank you guys very much for your participation in this roundtable. Very good insights from each one of you. And Shiva, I'll get back to you.
Thanks, Sebastian, for wonderful moderation. So we have some questions from the audience. If you can just take a quick questions. Miguel has asked some questions that as COVID-19 surfaced new competency in WFM roles for your organization. In fact, this question was for Tatiana. And if any of the panelists would like to take this question, would you like to share any insights on new roles for the WFM folks post the pandemic? Do you see that, change in the WFM roles after pandemic? Any of the panelists would like to take this question?
So the question is, do we see changes, post-pandemic? Are we seeing a need for different rules and functions in WFM to address the new world?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. I can start. The one that I just mentioned a few minutes ago is certainly the mix of combination of having agents that need to work at home partially. As many companies are considering going to rotational work between work at home and work in the office, is one. The second one that we're hearing from many of our customers is seasonal growth in companies that didn't have seasonal growth before. So many people that have seasonality are quite used to handling it. They have processes in place to manage it. But some companies that had been very, very stable in terms of the volume that they got, COVID has generated additional seasonal volume.
We lost you, Troy.
In terms of how this will happen, if it turns into something like the flu where I have to deal with it every year, then suddenly now I'm a seasonal company and I wasn't before. So I think those are the top two that we're hearing from, but certainly happy to have the other panelists weigh in.
And yeah, I agree, Troy. We're seeing the same trend, especially on the work at home situation. That's something that took hold, and we don't see it will be back as it was before the pandemic. It will be probably some hybrid situation between the work at home and our sites and client sites, but we're certainly not seeing it will stay the same way as it was before the pandemic. So I would agree on that one.
I also agree with the new roles in the evolution. My point of view there is, as the pandemic went, all most of the people start working from home, right? And the whole world changed on how we consume, how we interact with our companies or the services that we buy. And that, by definition, changed everything around it, right? So it changed how we have to plan for interactions, as Paul was mentioned, but also it changed how we can self-service, if may, all the functions or most of the functions, and you don't need, someone telling you where your HT is high or whatever, right? Because you have all your tools and you have all the digitization now that you can, without human interaction in most cases, you can have the same result. So for me, it's key. The role has changed a lot, and we have to move from what Troy was mentioning, data entry, to more analyst and data-centric positions.
I will also like to add that we have updated the communication matrix, because we normally were on site working face-to-face, the real-time analysts working with the agents and team leaders, but really we need more flexibility. So sometimes they are in the office 50% of time in the office and 50 at home. And I think from our staff, this has changed. And also important to mention that the contact rate has changed and won't be the same. For some companies, we are having double of the cost that we have in 2019. And these customers have learned to use the channels, more digital channels like chat, WhatsApp, or visual IVR. So this has changed in the point of view of the companies. That's what I see the biggest impact. And the other one is the way we communicate the workforce alert to the staff members. I think this is the most important thing of the impact of COVID.
Shiva,
we have another question?
Yeah, so we have there's one question from the audience. Kane, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me all right, guys?
Yes, Kane. Yeah.
So my question to the panel, and this was more for Paul earlier, was we are planning on introducing an end-to-end customer journey handling within the contact center. And part of the work that we want the frontline staff to work on is everything from call handling to back office to investigative work as well. How do we incorporate this into a WFM platform, or is there a WFM platform that can facilitate this? As well as, is there a WFM platform that can facilitate this as well as support with, supporting this as well as handing out or making sure, work is allocated to the staff in the right manner? I hope I'm making sense. I'm trying to be as clear and concise as possible.
Sure. I'm hearing a few different things here. That you're asking, how you want to be able to plan, forecast, schedule, and manage the entire journey, and that could take place from the front office to the back office. And
exactly.
So there's tasks in the back office, and how do you take care of those from a WFM perspective, because you don't have the ACD giving you stats all day long to tell you, what's going on in the back office, right?
Correct.
And so yes, the short answer is yes, there are some solutions out there that can help you. What you need is you need a facility in the back office that can measure what the people are doing, and typically in some sort of desktop analytics type of technology that is, so you can track how long does given activities take. So if they are supposed to be working on a given web URL to complete maybe a loan application or something like that, you can actually track how long they're on these different web pages and see if they need help. Maybe if they're longer than your normal average handle time for that type of interaction, maybe they need help. And so you can have one of the other team members ping them on Teams or on Skype and say, hey, I see you need some help with this particular interaction. So, and then once you get the statistics, then you have something that can start doing things like forecast and scheduling of those, because you've got all the metrics you need. And then you also will need to have a clear handle on what is average handle time across these different channels that are taking place, because different chats or whatever, do you measure just the in-focus time? Do you take in-focus and research time? What components so there's going to need to be a little bit of investigation done on how your processes work to be able to calculate what is the right formula for your average handle time, because you need AHT before you can really calculate your requirements. So we have NICE provides tools and consulting that can help throughout all those type of processes. There may be other companies out there, but I know we do that as well. So we're more than happy to help. If you'd like, you can just ping me, and I can put you in touch with the right people.
Perfect. I think we've got answers to everything that you've kind of called out there, Paul, in terms of understanding what that workload is. We forecast, we want to move to an end-to-end customer journey handling by our frontline staff, so that we can discourage the repeat contact or multiple contacts that come through the email channel, as well as the voice channel, as well as the web chat channel. So if we want to discourage all of that, and we want to provide one single solution, and that's the kind of methodology that we want to apply into our contact center in the future. And that's something that I'm working on solutionizing and looking out for a WFM partner that who I can partner with to kind of solutionize this for us, because we do a lot of work from investigative work to back office to call handling. So how do we have that one single cradle to grave journey for the customer and have that superb experience is where I'm coming from.
Thanks, Ken, for the questions. Maybe you could connect with Paul later. We'll just facilitate that. So we have last question from Rodrigo. He's asking question, what is the first step to be a data-driven company? Any insights on that from the panelists?
Well, so for me is managing data as an asset, but practically speaking, how should you manage data as an asset? The simple answer is to manage your data with the same importance and accounting rigor that is for the traditional assets in the company. And the next question for me is more important, which is why do we manage assets in the first place, right? And for me, the answer is to accomplish business objectives. So sell more shirts or ship more packages, connect more calls, whatever we do. So there is no need to have cash reserves, equipment, or real estate if we're not using them to accomplish business objectives. So that's the same approach that we should be getting with data. And that's what makes a data-driven organization. So the first part for me will be data literacy. You have to do a cultural change on how your people understand data.
It's much easier said than done, right? So in order to do that, your people needs to understand what the methodologies are to handle data, and keep in mind that this is a complex world, and right now data is in everyone's mouth. So it's not just understanding how you handle the data, but how you take care of it. There are countries and whole geographies, the European Union with GDPR as an example, where you will have to take special care on how you handle the data you have. So I agree with Sebastian. The first step is your team needs to have literacy on how to handle the data, and then you have to state the right problems you want to solve with that data. And once you can start working on those using the right methodologies and tools for data. That's the first step. Then you need to make sure you create the right data structures, because as long as you're evolving in this process, things start to scale up. And when they scale, if you build the wrong data structures, that will bring problems across your whole organization. So it's much easier said than done, but I would advise you start with data literacy. That's the first step. Understand the methodologies, how you work with data, and then you start moving forward.
Thanks. There's one more requesting question from Jonathan. He's asking, this is the last question, so we are exceeding your time. So what could be a good hire strategy to this new data science roles? Because we have world shortage of the skills for data scientists. He's asking what will be the right hiring strategy to hire data scientists.
Well, for me is first you need to understand what's the problem, the business problem that you want to solve, right? Because as Juan said, data is in everyone's mouth right now, and there is no clear understanding on if you need a data engineering or a data scientist or a data analyst. So for me, the first thing would be get clear on what's the business question that you want to solve or the business problem that you want to solve, and then hire for the right skills depending on that.
Thanks. Any insights from others?
I agree on that one. I read a Twitter some time ago where a data scientist said, my advice to companies, when they say they need AI, 50% of the times it's solved with a pivot and the right SQL question. So, and that's funny, but it's also true. If you don't state your problem right, you're gonna want to have machine learning and AI everywhere. That may not be the right approach for it. You need to state your business problem, understand what is it you need, and then with that, you start driving the right solutions. And maybe you just need data analysts, and you don't need to hold the whole path going through building machine learning algorithms to take decisions. You need to start understanding what your problem is, and with that, you start building the solution. But that's the very first step you should take.
Thanks, Johan. I think it's really time for us to let's say bye, and it's been a phenomenal discussion with a lot of questions from the audience and great thoughts that we got through the keynote speakers and panelists. It's been really inspiring, learning a lot in the process, and there are a couple of more questions we could answer them offline. It's really I'm really humbled and truly honored to launch Latin America chapter. Thanks, Sebastian, for supporting, and thanks, June, Troy, Evan, Paul, and Tatiana for making this happen. Truly, we got very high registrations, like close to 400, and I see that like more than 250 have attended the event. Truly very good. Really, truly humbled with this. With this, before we just close down, just invite the Latin America friends and whoever is joined from other regions to join in for the hackathon. In fact, first time we are witnessing hackathon. We are seeing technical hackathons, right? Technical hackathons in multiple skill sets, which is happening. In fact, for WFM, we are doing it first time in the global market. We're expecting to create more than 25 business cases in one day. So here is an opportunity for all the fellow WFM professionals to participate. All that you got to do is just go to the website, and anyway, I'm going to send a note to all of you to join in. From each company, you can join in 4 to 5 members as a team, and it's absolutely free. There's no entry fees at all. Absolutely free, and you could join in and ideate, work on it, win a prize. There'll be a mentor who is going to be allocated, and also there'll be judges. And day 2, you can just present. You can make a masterpiece presentation with 15 minutes and followed by questions and answers by the jury or judges. It's going to be a fantabulous opportunity for all of us. I see that Latin has got great minds at WFM. We don't want to miss out getting your ideations, getting your ideas, and getting the WFM breakthroughs. So we want all of you to think through and just join in. For this, please feel free to reach me out, if you need any clarification or anything. Today, I spent time with 4 to 5 companies talking about hackathon and all. They've been enrolling. A lot of top organizations have been enrolling, and we're going to have at least 100 hackers in WFM on 8th of April. We have some good amount of time to prepare ourselves and come through with this. Thank you so much for taking your time out. It's really great having all of you this today. Thanks, Sebastian, for taking out your time from the business schedule. Thanks all the speakers, especially all the panelists. And please join us on our social media. Looking forward to connecting with you. We're going to notify all of you. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel to take a look at our previous events. And please follow us on our social media. Today we inaugurate Latin America chapter of GWFM. And looking forward to having you. If you need any assistance or anything, please reach out to me or to Sebastian. And we're looking for some supporters who can be part of the core team. Please feel free to reach out to Sebastian or to me. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Thank you so much.